All right, let's go ahead and call tonight's meeting to order. Ms. Glorioso Mas, can we get a roll call, please?
Member Angela Bird-Gray. Member Judith Gabriel.
Here.
Member Tony Garlix, excused. Member Mark McConnell.
Here.
Member Steve Pilcher.
Here.
Member Ben Pengili, excused. Oh. Member Gary Schiffmiller.
Here.
Member Helen Wang.
Here.
Chair Michael Garcia.
Present.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Next up is the approval of the agenda. I have one change I would like to make, which is moving item 11 matters from the chair up to right after item 6. So it would be moved to right before discussion and possible action items. And so that's an amendment I would like to make, and I'll make that motion. Second. Okay, are there any other changes to the agenda from staff? Oh,
I just sent or emailed the minutes, and if the committee thinks that it needs to be tabled to next month, that would be change on the agenda or amendment on the agenda.
or we can postpone them when that item comes. Yeah, let's go that route. We'll postpone it till the next meeting. Any other changes, Member Bordigary?
A request under 7D, bike racks on the plaza. I'm going to be asking Leah from the MPO to expand on that, and she's presenting right before it, but I'm wondering if it could go before Descanso. So transpose items C and D.
Okay, so moving up D to move it before C.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Sure. Any other changes? Oh, so what I'll do is I'll remove my motion, whoever seconded it. That we can just make it as easy as possible. So I'll remove my motion to approve the agenda. Who was the second on my motion? Would you be willing to? Yes, sir. And then if you would be willing to make my changes and your changes in your motion and then second, then we can make it that much easier. Yes. Or would your motion include my motion to amend?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second to Member Bordigary's motion or amendment?
Second.
Okay, and just for the record, that is moving item 11 to be after item 6, and then moving item 7D to be right after 7B. Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Glorioso Mas, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Member Bird-Gray. Member Gabriel.
Yes.
Member McConnell.
Yes.
Member Pilcher.
Yes.
Member Pengili. Member Schiffmiller.
Yes.
Member Wang.
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. And so next up is approval of the minutes. Given that we just got them, what's the will of the committee? If not, I'm happy to make a motion to postpone the approval of these minutes until our August meeting, or time to allow for time for the committee members to review. Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? There are none. Ms. Glorioso Mas, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Member Bird-Gray. Member Gabriel.
Yes.
Member McConnell.
Yes.
Member Pilcher.
Yes.
Member Pengili.
Yes.
Member Schiffmiller.
Yes.
Member Wang.
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you. Next item is communications from the public. Do we have any members here present that would like to address the body? Oh, Mr. Crump? Okay, feel free. You have 2 minutes. And if you need to go a little longer, perfectly fine, but
Oh.
I would say speak now because when it comes later, it's the discussion between us. And so that would be the appropriate time to.
That will make a big, yes. Hang on just a second. I have a hearing disabilities, so I listen to this through Zoom and have to turn it down. Okay. So recently I rode my bike to the plaza just to enjoy its green, cool beauty and began to look for a bike rack. Ay, ay, ay. Actually, I found several in that area. There's a single loop next to the Five and Dime, and the state has thoughtfully provided bike racks in front of Fine Arts and in front of the History Museum. But the silver level city of Santa Fe does not provide bike racks. So just to make a comment on behalf of a bike riding public, that it would be beneficial to have racks rather than trees and signposts to hold our bikes in safety. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Crump. I appreciate the comments and feedback. We have another in the audience. Come on up.
name is Hubert van Ecke. Also about the bike racks, my wife and I bicycle to the plaza a lot. And our favorite bike rack is in the private parking area that is across from the museum entrance. There's a big bike rack there. We always I think a bike rack on the plaza would be it's more a psychological thing to show that we have bikes. They're here, we're here, we should be on the plaza. But in terms of places to park, I don't see pressing need. Bike rack in the bank parking lot is always available.
Thank you. Don't see anybody else in person, but we do see Ms. Koslow online.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, good. I could not make it, but yes, my name is Judy Koslow, and I live in the retirement community of El Castillo off of East Alameda. And I think Romella has enclosed a copy of my letter that I sent to the New Mexican in your packet. And it speaks on behalf of the dangerous crosswalks on East Alameda for pedestrians. One of our residents was hit by a car while he thought it was safe to cross because a car had stopped to let him go. And another car came up behind him and hit the first car that bumped into the man, who ended up going to the emergency room and having many bones broken. And the guy that hit him never stopped but kept going, and there was no way to trace him. And then my story tells how I almost was killed by another car that came whipping across that crosswalk. And our CEO from El Castillo went to the city to ask what could be done to make it safer. And then I think Rumela also put her email in there that said basically they told her they would study it as they do all of them, but they were very busy and really there was no money. And they didn't do anything, and the man at El Castillo was hurt. It took him a long time to heal, and luckily he wasn't killed. And I missed being killed by seconds. So I just want to really start, hopefully, thinking of crosswalks as places that cars should stop. There could be a warning, even to stripe them bigger and better would work. And New Mexico is one of the worst states for pedestrians. We have the biggest death toll of practically any state. So I am urging that crosswalks start being studied. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Costello. I really appreciate the comments and feedback. And thank you for sending the additional letter to us as well. Is there any other members of the audience or anybody else online that would like to comment? Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is communications from other agencies. First up is Bike Santa Fe. Is Aria here? I don't. Just in case she might be running late, what I'll do is I will make a motion to table this in the instance that Aria is able to join us later. That way she can present. So I'll make a motion to table item 6A.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion. Oh, all right. Well, I'll rescind my motion then. And would you? Okay, sorry, Aria. We didn't see you online. I deeply apologize for that. The floor is yours. Mike, you know if Aria can be unmuted?
Hi, I think I'm unmuted. Sorry about
You're
that
good.
delay. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Thank you. I guess just to follow up on the previous public comments, I was going to mention safety for cyclists and pedestrians, especially considered we've had another tragic killing of a cyclist, Stephen Ballinger, in recent months. So, you know, our Bike Santa Fe just urges the city to do everything they can to prevent these tragedies and create safer streets, as well as oversee investigations of motorists. And we also, one of our board members recently contacted the city about putting a crosswalk in at DeForest Street and the River Trail, which is getting, I think, more bike traffic and pedestrian traffic because of the removal of the bridge at Clausen Street. So there is currently no crosswalk at all or paint of any kind or signage at that street. So it would be really beneficial to safety to put something there. And the other things I have is that we are having an election, so we will have a new board in August, and we will be voting on officers and committee positions then. We are continuing to host bike valets through the summer for Canyon Road events and IFAM. And the final thing I have is we received inquiry and feedback from a business owner about how to go about installing or fixing a bike rack in front of his business. And it kind of came to my attention that as Bike Santa Fe, we need to have a better link to resources on our website. I also hope the city has a link like that on their website to help promote putting bike racks in and installing them correctly for business owners. So we're definitely going to continue to work on that on our end, and maybe be in contact with the city to make sure we have the correct city code and a link to that and everything. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Aria. Are there any questions from committee members? Member Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's not clear to me, I'm not sure if it was the owner of the Cowgirl that you're talking about, that message came to me also. And who maintains bike racks that might be in front of a business? Do the business owners own it, or does the city own it and the city's in charge of maintenance is really not clear to me. So I would like clarification on that. Thank you.
Why don't we have you since, wait, how come MPO's not on matters from other agencies?
Because they are under discussion.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, please provide an update. Happy to accommodate that.
Just regarding bike rack, it depends. It depends on if it's on the business right of way or the public right of way. For Cowgirl, that is public right of way. So technically the city should maintain it, but there's a really long history of how that got in and who does and doesn't accept responsibility of that one. Most of the ones, you know, if it's adjacent to a business is owned by them. And so it would be their responsibility.
Member Schiffmiller.
I'd like to comment on the crossing at DeFurry Street. I agree it should be painted and should be very visible. But I would also point out that where there is, at the corner of every intersection, it is a legal crosswalk, whether or not it is painted. So it is a legal crosswalk and people can use it as such, what that's worth.
Any other comments from committee members? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Aria. Really appreciate the update.
Thank you.
Next up is item 6B, Public Safety Advisory Committee, Member Pilcher.
The committee did meet this last month, and I did have the opportunity to remind them, the police in particular, that the SB 73 is going into effect at the beginning of July. And after the meeting broke up, one of the officers came up and very eagerly asked me for more information about that. So that's a good sign. The chair also mentioned something about the Public Safety Committee becoming a voting committee. I'm not sure what that means. That's sounds like it might have a little bit higher stature than it currently has, but I'm not sure what that means. Anyways, we'll be meeting again next week on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you, Member Pilcher. Not sure what a voting committee means anyway, 'cause Citizen Advisory Committee members don't have the authority to approve legislation, so to speak. So members, bodies such as this, we have the ability to review and provide recommendations, but we do, this body, for example, you know, with the recent Vision Zero resolution that came here, or if that resolution was not approved by this committee, that doesn't mean it stops it, because it's a recommendation committee. It doesn't require the approval of this committee. So I'll learn more as to what, because I'd love for this committee to have a little more authority as well, if that's the case. So sure, Member Gary.
Thank you, Chair. The Public Safety Advisory Committee is one of our subcommittees, correct? Okay, I'm
Separate.
sorry. Could you just describe what it is?
Well, it's difficult. It's a separate committee of the city, based mainly as police and fire, who are there at each meeting. I can't tell you much more about it. I know one of my first meetings I attended, I asked, well, what is the purpose of this committee? Does it have like BPAC has a nice resolution telling the staff and committee what all our rights and responsibilities are, and I was told there was nothing like that. Maybe that's what we mean by becoming more of a voting committee, a little bit more firmly established by resolution.
So you attended on your own?
No, I'm the
You're-
BPAC rep. The
I see. Pardon me for,
I took that from once Cal got off.
I see.
Maybe foolishly volunteered to take it.
Thank you.
So for further clarification, Public Safety Advisory Committee is a citizen advisory committee similar to this. It does have a city councilor chairing it, similar to this committee. Member Pilcher, and this is where I don't know if there is a resolution or whatnot, but per some of the requirements, there is a BPAC member that is a represented on that particular committee. So for example, if Member Pilcher were to hit the lottery and take off to Hawaii tomorrow, we would have to appoint a replacement for him on that committee. So that just for further clarification.
Chair Garcia, we have a resolution.
Workforce Public Safety, I would have thought there was one. Usually every of those committees is established by a resolution, but
The BPAC member, a current BPAC member represents BPAC on that committee.
gotcha. Okay. Yep,
About
sure.
that, you have the resolution. So obviously, I'm guessing there's representatives from the police department and the fire department. Are they have roles on this committee, or the committee requests presentations from them?
They attend every meeting and they provide information, like the police chief will go over the monthly report about number of crimes and it's happened. But mostly we get presentations. There's been a presentation from fire department, some of the good work that they do. And last meeting, there was a bunch of awards handed out to firefighters who've been quite involved in the fire down there at the Santa Fe, I can't remember the name, just south of St. Francis and Zia. There's this old hotel that the city converted into transitional housing.
Oh,
Santa
yeah.
Fe Suites, thank you.
Mhm.
And there'd been a fire there, so there's a report on how the fire department reacted to that and helped people out.
So what I'm getting at is, because you'd said a police person approached you after the meeting to
Yes.
get more information about what you brought there. Is that disseminated then to the police department, or does that come, I mean, I'm asking because you would know, and I'm curious, because do they bring it back to their police force? It's presumably, or about the Idaho stop?
Presumably they would, and that was certainly the impression I received from the officer I spoke with.
Great, because we've talked a lot about the motor vehicle division and things for drivers to know about for bike safety. And it's always, we need means and mechanisms for that to happen. That's why I'm bringing this up. This is an avenue. But and I'm curious what other avenues may exist for making aware the agencies that actually promulgate and enforce regulations, like how to get the message across. Like ideally, MVD would be putting more emphasis and requirements on training around non-motorized vehicles, right? An awareness thing. So thank you for your service.
Member Schiffmiller.
I'm wondering if you, Steve, as the liaison, can request information from the police department on crashes. I'm thinking specifically of the recent fatality on Cerrillos Road, Stephen Ballinger. I think it would be within the interests of this committee to know the details of what happened, because how else can we make recommendations how to improve our streets unless we understand what happened? So I heard, news reports, and then I've heard nothing more. I don't know if the investigation is concluded. I don't know if the driver, who apparently did not leave the scene, I was glad to hear. I don't know if that driver's been cited. I don't know what statements that driver might have made as to why this occurred. Obviously, the deceased cannot make a statement and explain what happened. And I think this committee should find out what happened so we can make some recommendations. Can you get the report, or are those reports available to anyone, or I don't know how this works.
It's certainly a request. Yeah, like you, Gary, I'm not sure how the process works and if they take some degree of time to complete their investigation before they issue a report, but I can make that inquiry.
Appreciate it.
And to follow up that, as long as the investigation is complete, that report is open to anybody. Whether we request it as a committee or as an individual, that's public information. So
we do we have to do an IPRA request or anything like that?
we probably would have to do an IPRA request, but it would only be accommodated once the investigation is complete. So I honestly don't know if the investigation has been completed for that specific incident. But I think that's where Member Pilcher could inquire. We can't at this moment direct him. If Member Pilcher wants to do that on your own during the next meeting, that's.
Yeah, I'll ask we meet on Tuesday afternoon, so I'll ask.
Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions regarding Public Safety Advisory Committee? All right, well, good luck with the meeting next week. We'll go ahead and move on to which is now item 11 that got moved up, which is matters from the chair. I moved this item up just because I wanted to share with the committee that we have, and when I say we, the city has completed its PSA video for the SB 72, the Idaho stop law that went into effect. We unfortunately can't have discussion on this because it's matters from the chair, but I wanted to make you all aware that this is now up on the city's YouTube channel. My hope is that the city will now begin to promote it on its social media streams. We'll make sure we share the link with everybody, including our friends and colleagues with Bike Santa Fe and everybody else. That way they have access to this video. Those are the only matters I have from the chair at the moment, but as they say, Romella, will you roll the reels?
What is the Idaho stop law? It is a statewide law modeled after one originally passed in Idaho in the 1980s that allows bicyclists to treat stop signs as yield signs and red lights as stop signs. What are a bicyclist's responsibilities according to this law? At a stop sign, a bicyclist is required to confirm that there is no other traffic, including pedestrian traffic, that must be yielded to pulling through the stop sign. If there is other traffic that must be yielded to, the bicyclist must come to a complete stop and yield to that traffic. At a red light, the bicyclist must come to a complete stop and then confirm that there is no other traffic that must be yielded to before proceeding through the intersection. How does this law benefit bicyclists and motorists? It can allow bicyclists to maintain momentum through intersections with stop signs. At signalized intersections, it can allow bicyclists to avoid turning conflicts with motorists, and also creates more distance between bicycles and motor vehicles, thus reducing the likelihood of a crash. It can also eliminate the need for motor vehicles to follow slower moving bicycles through an intersection once the light has turned green. 12 states have adopted laws similar to the Idaho stop, allowing cyclists to treat stop signs as yield signs. The data is promising. Idaho saw a 14.5% drop in bike injuries, and Delaware saw a 23% decrease at stop sign intersections. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, these laws improve cyclist safety, visibility, and even help the environment.
All right, so that is the video.
Limo at your service. Here to help you save
Not the commercial.
Take your with Liberty Mutual. Probably should have gone the other way.
But I do
Only
want to
pay?
thank Romella for all of her help, member Gabriel, and the comms team for putting this together. Hopefully this will be helpful in educating the community as our community members begin to roll through stop signs and stop at red lights when needed, et cetera, because we need to ensure that folks are well aware of this and people don't get yelled at when they see a cyclist running through a red stop sign. So with that, stay safe out there, everybody.
Narrator is staff.
I believe it was. I couldn't tell you. You know, was the narrator Chris Peralta? Sounded like Chris's voice, no?
Good
Okay.
voice.
Okay. Who was it? You don't know? Okay. Gotcha. I don't know who the voice behind the video was, but please share the video. Let's go to move on to the next item, which is item 7, discussion and possible action items. Appointment of Gary Schiffmiller as chair of the Technical Review Subcommittee. So as chair of BPAC, I will make that appointment. And so member Schiffmiller, please represent us well.
Thank you. I'll do my best.
Let's go to move on to item 7B.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm sorry. The attachment with all the members in it is incorrect for the Promotion, Education, and Communications Committee. Kempton Jackson is no longer on the committee, and Randy Merker is. And I'm not sure when Randy was appointed, but it's John Pyle and Randy Merker. Kempton is gone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Glorioso, did you get the changes? Okay, perfect. Thank you for that update, Ms. Member Gabriel. Yes.
One other question about this list. The appointed dates, are those the initial appointment dates for folks? I'm not to pick on Judith. I know as it says she was appointed 2021. These are 3-year terms. We're beyond 3-year terms. So you must have been reappointed then in 2024.
Actually, I thought I was appointed in 2020 and I am on my final term. But I'm a little confused about it myself, so.
Why don't we can get clarification, the appointment terms.
You were appointed in that subcommittee. Remember, when you joined BPAC, we did not have that subcommittee.
Oh, it's the subcommittee appointment.
It's a subcommittee.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glorioso, for the clarification. Now on to item 7B, Bicycle Master Plan, Designing for Safer Cycling. Leah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. I have it up in presenter mode, so whoever's doing computers, that Mike.
Yeah, Mike with IT, can we get the PowerPoint up?
There it is. Okay, thank you so much. So I'll primarily be focusing on designing for safer cycling, an amendment, standalone amendment to our bicycle master plan. But we have a couple other things going on that, we would normally share during our agenda item update as well. So our 2025 to 2050 Santa Fe Metropolitan Transportation Plan, the draft has been released for public review. And the public review period for that and our designing for safer cycling is June 27th to July 28th. And we have 2 public meetings. July 22nd, which is a Tuesday from 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. And that's a virtual meeting. We're trying out a daytime virtual meeting to see how that goes. And then our primary in-person meeting is July 24th. Thursday at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Monica Roybal Center. We're on 737 Agua Fria Street, where our offices are. We also have our public participation plan, which, along with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, is a federally required product that we have to elaborate on and detail all of our public participation practices that we will follow for our plans and our federally required work products. I do want to mention that the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, it does include biking, so it may be worth it for you to take a look. We have 8 chapters. It's a very similar format to our previous one, but the big difference is that we have an online story map that is interactive, so it's a little it's an easier way to engage with the content. We also have we're excited to have a new component, a bicycle level of stress map, showing the bicycle level of stress, which is a kind of a national standardized metric incorporating road widths, bike lane widths, number of lanes, speed limits. And I think a couple of, if it's buffered, which not many of ours are, if it's protected, which none of ours are, to produce then a bicycle level of stress score for a road segment. So that's a new metric that we are excited to have now and excited to use more going forward. But I really wanted to present to you all our standalone amendment to the bicycle master plan called Designing for Safer Cycling. I have already met with the technical review subcommittee. So it's just Gary, Steve, or I can't remember who was there, but Gary was there. So apologies, it's mostly the same presentation. And I also presented this to Bike Santa Fe and to Morrow, our Complete Streets director, to get early stakeholder feedback before we went to public review. So we, as you probably already know, we have the 2019 Bicycle Master Plan, which is a great plan. It has a lot of content, but it doesn't go into depth into an issue that we hear from the public as well as your committee a lot, which is people want a safer type of bike lane. And it's mentioned in our 2019 Bicycle Master Plan, but we've found that a lot of issues and kind of sticking points have come up over the years that aren't addressed, that we saw an opportunity that could be addressed, all of the guidance, federal guidance, and national guidance that could be then tailored to Santa Fe. So that's what we did. And there are 4 different sections inside the plan. It's, we have background and goals, and then getting more into the content. Maintenance is one of the issues that comes up quite a bit. So we have a section on maintenance, and then best practices and peer city examples, facility design standards, and we also address right-of-way. More like, not like, you know, what's public right-of-way, what's private right-of-way, but who has the right-of-way and how to delineate that. So in the background, I think a lot of you all know this already, but numerous surveys have, basically it's like, why are we still asking the barriers to people biking? We know people don't feel safe. And studies have shown that protected bike lanes make people feel safer, but they also make our roads and streets safer for everyone based off of a meta-analysis of 12 or 13 different cities across the US. And then also there are economic development and environmental benefits, you know, of getting more people biking, we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and it can spur economic development. So on maintenance, it really, we had it, you know, pretty early on because it really is an important issue. And it is true that when the city does develop this type of infrastructure, there will be maintenance considerations, and it's something that we do need to take seriously. But it's also something that can be taken into account in the design phase. And there are certain designs that may have require less maintenance, like the flex posts, they get broken really quickly. And that's something that needs to be maintained regularly versus a poured concrete barrier. It's more expensive up front, but then the concrete itself doesn't require very much maintenance. And then, so we did work with consultants planned out of Albuquerque, and they reached out to a lot of different peer cities to see what they do. And so I think that part of the plan is really interesting because it shows, you know, real life practice, practical application and practices of maintenance. For example, I think it was San Luis Obispo. They started out just with like a leaf blower and that's how they started their maintenance, and then now they're upgrading to a machine that can do it. And then I mentioned conflict points. So who has the right of way? There are recommendations for how to demonstrate that, how to make it clear, how to slow down traffic at vehicles at those conflict points, how to make the people biking more visible so that those conflicts are less likely to occur. And there is also detailed descriptions of different facility options and the pros and cons and cost estimates for all of these. So these are the ones that are included. It's a little tiny. I'm not sure if you can read it, but we include painted buffers, flexible delineator or bollards, curb stops, on-street parking, planters, raised median, and a raised bike lane. This is an example of what the details look like for each type of bike infrastructure. So again, it's very tiny, but you can, this is more for an illustrated example than for you to absorb all this content right now. And then that includes design strategies and then cost estimates. And then also you may know that, so there's national guidance on bicycle and street design, road design called ASHTO, and they came out with their updated bike design guidelines that was December of 2024 last year. So then the consultants pulled up all of the guidance and recommendations from that and then incorporated it into this guide. So we have some of those best practices right there. We also then picked, it was mostly picked at random, an example street in Santa Fe of how this infrastructure could fit. So our example that we picked was Yucca Street. So that's what you can see on the upper left, right, the top right. That how it would be the existing Yucca Street and then how the type of infrastructure in that section would fit. So then this to me was one of my motivating factors for getting this plan and the work done on this plan was creating a prioritization matrix of sorts so that, you know, the public could use this, we can use this internally as well to understand the level of priority, like which streets really, because obviously, you know, it'd be great if we had low stress connected networks just throughout the city, but we're not going to start there. So how do we start and how do we know which streets is this really where it should be, this type of infrastructure should be prioritized? So that's what this matrix is as you go through. There's 8 different questions that you ask, and then based on your answer about that particular road segment, you would get assigned points, and then that would break it into 3 different prioritization categories. So I did, as an example, St. Michael's Drive, which is one of my personal desires to have some type of protected or separated bicycle facility on St. Michael's, and went through all of this, answered the questions. The scores awarded were 5, which would make it priority 1, which kind of made it in line with what my expectations would be for that road. Then once the priority level, you know, you have an idea of what level of priority it is, then you could go on to the facility type selection matrix. So this is basically all of the different types, the delineators, planters, raised bike lanes, etc. And in what context, based on the street criteria, would each type be appropriate? So for example, planters on the plaza, great idea. On St. Michael's or on Cerrillos, probably a bad idea. And then there's also, I mentioned there's the conflict in the right of way. There's a little bit more about that on the end. And also I really liked the design strategies because we are a city that values our aesthetics, and there are definitely ways that we could make this part and you know, fit into the Santa Fe style and enhance it rather than being an eyesore. There are a lot of really cool examples of materials and ideas for that. So I mentioned before that the formal comment period ends, it's open now, it ends July 28th. We have these 2 public meetings. The public meetings are for all of the plans. We're happy to talk about any of them during that. And then another exciting update that's a little bit removed from this, but we've mentioned it to you all several times, is that we have been partnering with the City Public Works to create the City of Santa Fe Street Design Guide. And that draft is complete and it's available for review. It's on our website. Go to our front page. There will be a link there. It's also on our MTP page, just in case, you know, so we can catch people who are trying to get information about that plan as well. So that's all I have for you now. There's our website if you haven't already memorized it, and I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah, for the presentation. Any questions from committee members? Member Gabriel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Leah. That was really interesting, and forgive my ignorance, but is there anything about pedestrian walking as a transportation in the plan?
There is in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Yes, if that's what your question is, yeah.
Yeah, given the concerns brought up earlier, it seems like it would behoove us to review those as well as the bike stuff.
Please do.
Yeah. And I have another question. I don't know if it's for Leah or for somebody from the city. How does the city use these reports when they're complete? Do they use them for guidance? How does that work? How does the city interact with these reports? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And also, right as you were asking that, I remembered that I should have mentioned that one of the primary functions of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan is to list out the project list, which is it's required to be in there by the federal government, and that has all of our regionally significant projects or other projects that may be suitable for federal funding. And then they're prioritized. And so I can speak for the city, that the city definitely does follow that list when they go and select their projects. And it is actually very important that projects that any of the agencies pursue be on that list if they want to receive federal funding. For the bicycle master plan and the amendment, I think that one is more on the NPO to make sure that they're utilized. Yeah, but luckily we have been at the table, so able to do it.
That's my question, because when I apply for funding, especially federal funding, as you know, we identify all the plans where the project is prioritized. Will you change the priority projects in the 2019 master bike master plan with the methodology that you use, like for prioritizing projects?
No, we haven't taken it that far yet. We may eventually do that, but at this point, I mean, right now, the bicycle master plan and our projects listed in the bicycle master plan don't actually specify the type of infrastructure other than on-street infrastructure versus trail infrastructure. So that's where, I think maybe those priorities probably still stand, and then taking it a step further would be, what type of infrastructure.
Can you say again what the date and time of that meeting will be at the Monica Roybal Center?
Yes, that's Thursday, July 24th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Member Pilcher.
Do you anticipate there being changes in how federal funding is provided for projects, given the amount of change we see in Washington, D.C. these days?
I believe that, yeah, the federal DOT has made it clear that they do want to change how projects are funded. It's kind of, TBD how that plays out.
I would imagine that it might be less emphasis on things like bicycling and pedestrians and more on moving cars around.
Yeah, and I think the one glimmer of hope in that is that there are several federally funded or federal grant programs that are state administered. So the state themselves are doing the ranking process, calls for projects, and selecting the projects. They still have to get federal highways approval. But our state DOT definitely wants to maintain support for biking and walking.
Any other questions for Leah? I guess my question is, are you seeking the recommendation or approval from us?
Nope,
Any?
no voting matter.
Okay, just double checking. Nothing else I don't see, so it seems like covered it very well.
Great.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move on to the next item. We moved up item D, which is bike racks on the plaza. And this is Member Bartigari.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to follow up on this. The earlier comments from the public brought this to our attention, Mr. Philip Crump, and we all got emails about it. And he already described the issue, and I think this warranted a discussion up here. On the BPAC, I did a little research and I spoke with Leah, who has some good information for us. And so I'm going to just turn it over to Leah about the status of bike racks. And I want to be clear, not on the plaza, but in the plaza area. The plaza is a national historic feature. It's hard to know. We don't mess with it. And it goes, you'd go through, we wouldn't do that. So just to be clear, we're not talking about on the plaza, we're talking about around it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Member Board of Gray. Yeah, so basically we talked about some of the challenges. So one of which is that basically anything in the public area needs to be approved by the Historic Review Board, which if you've seen the bike racks with the Santa Fe decal, they have been through that process. So those bike racks are approved. I'm actually not sure about the inverted U, the simple ones, like the one that's already there on 5 and Dime. It's definitely possible to buy more of those Santa Fe custom ones. They're very nice. The price has risen quite a bit. We got a quote last year and we're surprised at how expensive they are, but they might be worth it. I think the biggest challenge has been funding. We have met with parking staff before to say, hey, you guys do parking, what about bike parking? And they were amenable, but never were able to get it into their budget. Public Works has at times thought maybe they would have funding, but it hasn't come to fruition. So maybe that's something worth following up on again. As far as locations, there are standards in the code. I think there are pretty good standards for where specifications for how bike racks get installed. They have to be far enough away from walls. They can't block the walking area. So there was an audit done, I guess, in 2014 before my time, where they identified locations. I believe some of them in the downtown area. Some of those locations did get bike racks, such as the convention center that has the Santa Fe decal ones. I think that would be a good place to start if funding were identified. And yeah, I think it's our downtown. It's a nice downtown, and I think springing for the custom bike racks would probably be worth it for our aesthetic image. Yeah, is there anything else you want me to elaborate on?
Thank you for that. That's my understanding as well. So for the discussion here, we could discuss the feasibility and desirability to recommend that the city find resources to install some bike racks in areas that are already identified. So that's where I'd like to see it go. Wanted to hear what you all thought, and particularly the chair. I'm always sensitive to funding, pulling funding, out of the city.
Sorry, I just remembered one more thing that we talked about was the possibility of a bike corral like the one at Cowgirl, which the 2014 assessment, I think that was more like one-offs, one rack, one or two on the sidewalk. But if you look critically at the streets around the plaza, they're huge, they're far bigger than they need to be. So there have been discussions about could we utilize some of that space, because we don't have high volumes of traffic. We don't really want it. We don't want fast traffic. We want slow traffic. So maybe considering a bike corral, a permanent bike corral would be something else to consider.
Member Pilcher.
Thank you. You mentioned the 2014 inventory. Is that still available, or is this just a rumor from the past?
I believe we could find it. I I have seen it before. And it was a postcard. So
I think a good starting point. I worked in Spokane, Washington for a long time. This had to do with automobile parking, but they realized one of the problems they had, many motorists didn't know where there was parking available in parking garages and stuff. And I wonder sometimes if we might have the same issue to some degree here with bike parking, that maybe the first thing we need to let people know is where is parking available, like Hubert brought up earlier. So I'm not sure I can picture that rack in my mind, but I don't think I'm aware of it. So those are good things, good starting point at least, but not that we shouldn't also look to get more bike parking.
Member Bordiger?
I have it on good account that the audit is in your files and that there's a map as well that shows what recommended spots. So thank you.
Member Gabriel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's two things that occur to me. One is the consistent issue of budget and having an established budget for bike and pedestrian infrastructure, and how we can go about ensuring that when the budget is made, that there's money for maintenance and for things like bike racks and other crosswalk striping, whatever. So that's the first issue. The other one is, I wonder if there's an opportunity once we identify either where there are some bike racks or where we will put them, to work with the tourism department. I don't know if they still make that kind of almost a cartoony graphic looking map of the downtown. But it would be great to work with them to identify bike racks. So when people are visiting, or even those of us who live here, can easily identify those. And that wouldn't be like a separate thing from BPAC. It would be incorporated into any city map that the tourism department is using. Thank you. Sure.
Any other question? I got a question for you, Leah. Since you did somewhat of a cost analysis, what is the cost that y'all determined?
I'm remembering around $700 or $800 per rack.
Okay, that's doable. And so the reason I ask is, I, as a city councilor, have my own budget, so to speak, that each councilor gets allocated, I think something like $10,000. And I don't believe I've ever used my money, so it doesn't get rolled over every year. It doesn't mean it's accumulated, but I'm happy to look at potentially having a budget adjustment to cover the cost of this, but ultimately we need to develop a plan. And I would like for us as a committee to really dig our heels in and get into the muck, and this 2014 audit would be a great place to start. I don't want to say that would be the entire universe, because the world was different. Downtown was different in 2014. Because, my mind started to gravitate, if we're going to encourage folks to bike more and drive less, why not utilize a parking space or a bike corral? Because was that part of the 2014 plan?
No, I don't think bike corrals were considered in that,
Okay.
but
So that's where I think using the 2014 plan would be helpful, but I would encourage us to think outside the box. And I think maybe next meeting, we could come back and have a much more in-depth discussion after having an opportunity to review the plan. I would say homework for folks, take a trip downtown where you think, as Member Bordigari mentioned, not specifically on the plaza, but in a location that can actually get you to and from places rather quickly. If you're coming into the downtown area, where would be a great place to park your bike to access all the amenities downtown? The only other question I had was going through H-Board, right? Because if we allocate this, then we've got to put together a plan that goes before H-Board. how, if we can, and we don't need an answer tonight, maybe if we as a, you, Leah, and I can work with member, and maybe Ms. Glorioso Mas on what that plan would look like. That way, if when we reconvene in August, we can have a clear idea of if we were able to identify locations, what would that look like? Would it mean me as a counselor bringing forward a proposal before H board? But what does it actually look like? That way we can ultimately set in place an action plan, so to speak. So lots of homework to be done, but I'm in full support of this. And I think, again, I'm not somebody who wants to let cost be a barrier, especially if we want to promote biking in our community. And I'm willing to give up my counselor allocation just because I don't ever use it in this. I don't travel. Most folks use it for travel. I don't. So
We can add it also in the strategic plan. The BPAC strategic plan, there's a strategy or a tactic that can be added in the action plan. So it's more.
yeah, I mean,
Not-
that could be, I don't want to slow down the process because I think the
No.
quicker we can get these bike racks implemented,
Mhm.
better. And I think that's where we can, some of us without violating rolling quorum, huddle up, figure out how to.
Yeah, because if you remember, Chair Garcia, the acquisition of bike racks was included in the strategic plan that SFMPO prepared for us before we had the strategic plan. Bike racks was included in the action plan.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we can just add it.
That's helpful. And
Yeah.
so I think lots of homework, because again, I'm thinking from initial thought process, having a budget adjustment, moving money from my budget to, I would assume would it go to MPO, Public Works, probably Public Works, I would assume. But again, I would need to confer with our finance team, make sure I'm not violating any requirements, et cetera. So my recommendation is we have this as an item for next meeting where we can potentially discuss some action items to move us forward. Any other? Yeah, Member McConnell.
Just a quick question, 700 fabrication or fabricated installed?
Yeah, that would just be ordered and then delivered to us. And then as far as installation, yeah, we would have to either utilize city staff. I believe Eric himself, installed some of the previous ones, but we have to figure that out.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, and I haven't really seen them, so I didn't know if they were like, you got a core drill into the sidewalk or it's a bolt down type of installation, but that's okay. You answered my question. The
Well-
installation is done by city staff.
Well, and it could be different, right? Dependent on the location. So I think that's where we need to determine
Oh, yeah.
what the model is, whether it's a standalone bike rack, a bike corral. I think that whole implementation of cost might be different, but yeah, I think the most cost-effective way would be best. So, sure. Any other comments or questions on this? Yes. Yes, Member Wong. I didn't know, I think Ms. Glorioso Mas said you might have had your hand up, so.
Oh, I think I was stretching. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries, understandable. We're sitting down for a while in these meetings, I apologize. With that, there's no action to take, right? But I think we look forward to more discussion in our August meeting. Okay, thank you for the history lesson. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next item, which is item 7C. Descanos for pedestrian and bicycle facilities within the city of Santa Fe. Member Schiffmiller, this item is yours.
Yes, that's a typo. It should be descansos.
It is. I was reading it and I was like, that's not right, but I'm going to read it as it is. So descansos. And with that being said, for those who might not know what a descanso is, let's lead off with that?
So a descanso is a memorial to someone who's been killed, typically in a traffic accident, but not necessarily in a traffic accident. And in this case, I'm referring to ghost bikes, which are bicycles that are painted white and erected at locations where a bicyclist was killed. And this discussion is spurred by the recent death of Mr. Stephen Ballinger on Cerritos Road. And it's come to my attention that there are people who want to erect a ghost bike there. And I'm not sure exactly what the city policy is for directing ghost bikes on city rights of way. I'm told that no one can find a written policy, but that there are some people in the city who, can you help me, Jennifer?
Just so the public knows who you are, Jennifer. I know who you are. We know who you are, but
There. My name's Jennifer Morrow. I am the Complete Streets Director, and I have been given the task of reviewing any requests for memorials or descansos. And I have two right now that I'm looking at. One is for the ghost bike, and another is for, I believe, a car fatality over on St. Michael's in Pacho, or is it Pacheco? I always get those mixed up, sorry. And
Pacheco.
Pacheco, thank you. Appreciate that. So at this time, I was told that the city, by my director, that the city will allow a temporary descanso to be placed for 6 to 12 weeks. And that is what I've been notifying people who are applying to put one in for approval. I have not found anything in writing. I know there's some, I have had people ask me where that comes from. I know there are descansos around the city. So I think that was where Gary had some concerns and about, maybe it's time for the city to have a policy since we're not really sure of our direction right now.
I looked up the state law. There is a state law protecting descansos, not necessarily ghost bikes, but descansos in general. And I don't have a copy of that statute with me right now, but the way I read it, it says that if a descanso is erected and it's not causing any safety issues, then, and it's on public property, not private property, then it cannot be removed. It cannot be destroyed. I interpret removal as destruction. And so no one's allowed to mess with a descanso. They're kind of sacred. I mean, that language isn't used in the state statute, but
You're correct, Gary. It's under the criminal section. I did talk to our legal here at the city about it, of what we're beholden to. And it does state that an existing descanso cannot be desecrated, is essentially what it says, and that there are I don't know if it's a felony or misdemeanor, probably a misdemeanor, but there is charges. It is in the criminal portion of the state law.
it seems to me that the city should have a written policy that's consistent with the state law.
And that's where we turn to someone like BPAC. This would be a great one for you guys to lead and see what the city, how they want to handle these, because that would make it easier for me if we had a written policy that I could follow.
Is there some action we can take as a committee to recommend that a policy be developed that's consistent with state statute?
it is within this committee's purview. We cannot enact the legislation, but there can be such recommendation put forward.
Can I make a motion that we? Yeah, of course.
Sure, Member Gabriel.
So the way you've described it, Gary, is that the policy is about removing or destroying a descanso. Are we also recommending that the city, as part of its policy, create criteria or whatever for people applying for a descanso or how we would go about doing it? Because it seems like from what you said, that part might be missing from the state policy. And it seems important to have a process for people to refer to if they want to put up a descanso. So I just would like more clarification. Thank you.
The way I read the state statute is, doesn't say anything about erecting descanso. It's all about once a descanso exists, no one can mess with it. And what I'm suggesting is the city develop a policy, and it could include a provision for how one applies. I mean, it's very open-ended at this point. But I just would hope that any policy developed would necessarily be consistent with state statute.
Member Bordigay.
Thank you. It begs the question, what is the definition of descanso in the state law? What's in it? What does it cover? Do we know?
I should have brought a copy with me. I'm sorry I didn't.
Okay, but that's the key issue, I think, too, is that we, what are we talking about here? What is all the possibilities that we're talking about? And is ghost bikes, like, would it take that form? So that's my point.
Ghost bikes are certainly protected as descansos. I think a descanso is any sort of memorial, not necessarily a ghost bike. It can be, flowers or, some sort of plaque. In fact, I believe at the corner of St. Mike's and Cerrillos, there is a descanso for someone who was killed, not in a traffic accident. It's been there for several years on the, guess you'd call it, I always have a hard time with north and south on Cerrillos Road because it kind of runs kind of northeast, southwest. It's
The northeast corner.
I would call it northeast.
There was a shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, a descanso is any sort of memorial to someone who has died at a particular location. I don't remember actually if the state statute defines what a descanso is.
They defined it. The law specifically defines a descanso as a memorial placed along a public road of right of way to memorialize a motor vehicle accident resulting in death, according to the New Mexico legislature. But removing a descanso, state and local government employees are exempt from this law when removing descansos that obstruct roads. That's the...
Right.
So it's specifically about traffic deaths. So the descanso that's currently at the northeast corner of Cerrillos and St. Mike's is not a traffic death. So I suppose it would not be protected under this particular law, which doesn't really affect us, but just as a point of information, I suppose that's not a state protected descanso.
I'm going to go to Member Pilcher and then I'll go back to you, Member Bordigay.
A quick observation. I went out last summer when they installed a ghost bike for the individual who was killed down near Galisteo. And that was definitely up on private property. Yeah, I don't know if they got a permission from the property owner or what the situation was.
I believe the state statute says if it's on private property, then the private property owner can take it down. But if it's in a public right of way and it's not obstructing, if it's not causing any safety issues, then public officials, and I suppose no one, is allowed to mess with it.
Member Bordigay.
Thank you. Pretty sure that our Department of Transportation at the state, I'm aware when they do freeway reconstruction and when they encounter those, that they have to put them back. So it says a lot about our state too. So it's required that they be replaced, probably per that state law, even government employees.
Any other comments? Member Gabriel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm wondering if this would be an appropriate a task for our policy committee. And Gary, maybe you can propose that we move in such a way that the policy committee could look at it. I do think there's also an informational and educational component to it that I think could be very useful as far as dangerous intersections and awareness of bikers in general. So I would love to see BPAC do something to address this issue. Thank you.
Member Pilcher?
One other question. You mentioned there's a, 6 to 12 week temporary provision that Public Works supports. So I'm just curious, why is there a time limit? I mean, if something's a traffic hazard, it's going to be one for 1 week versus 12 weeks. It doesn't magically become a traffic hazard after 12 weeks.
Well, and my job is to review what they're going to submit and approve it to ensure that they don't install a traffic hazard. So it will never be a traffic hazard because it'll go through an approval process.
So it seems like if there's a pathway for permanent installation, then if it's reviewed for not be a hazard, then
That's something that I don't have any policy or anything for me to do that. So that's kind of why this conversation's happened.
we should develop write a policy.
Member Bordiger?
Thank you. So you know this. So Albuquerque has them all over the place. Like, curious how they got there and what the process was. I mean, I've been going down to this one place for the last 20 years, and it's at that corner. It's on a public site. It's next to a church. It's there. So how do people, in some ways it makes me think there's been organizations, who maybe go and put them up. That's probably how it started, And so the question is, how do we institutionalize that? Or find out how others have done that, other cities.
And I can speak for Albuquerque because I was working there prior to being here, and their traffic engineer, Tim Brown, reviews all the descansos and he approves them, and then they're installed and then they're protected via the law. So they don't have a temporary criteria or anything like that.
Our temporary criterion is not in writing anywhere. Is that correct?
I have it in an email. Does that count?
I don't know if that does count. I mean, I don't think one
That's
can
the
create
direction
policy by writing an email.
Mayor Garcia, can I
Sure,
say
sure.
something?
Sure, but hold on one second, just because quickly doing a search, there's information I believe the Policy and Law Subcommittee can quickly find. Since we're talking about Albuquerque passed their own separate ordinance on this topic, which includes ghost bikes. So it takes the Descanso's state law to a further level to include ghost bikes. Now, with that being said, in regards to implementation, looks like there is a foundation called the Duke City Willem Foundation that is the lead coordinator for installing ghost bikes in Albuquerque. I don't know if there is such an entity here in the city of Santa Fe, nor is an organization willing to step up. But with that being said, doesn't seem like there is a formal process from the city of Albuquerque either. It's just a kind of a request that comes through and thumbs up. And maybe even it's just folks going and installing them and waiting for the city to say this is not allowed, which in most cases probably they're left alone because there is a law saying they have to be left alone unless they're obstructing traffic as per stated the law. Because Albuquerque's, I just changed it. But yeah, Albuquerque's includes the verbiage ghost bikes in their language. So there is a path forward for this, for folks that are interested, and I would be in support of that. So with that, Ms. Glorioso Mas, you had a comment.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, the installation of sharrows, the installation of bike may use full lane, those were enforced by resolutions from BPAC. If BPAC wants to lead this, then we can draft a resolution like shallow installation and like bike may use full lane that is enforceable.
Well, I'd rather go the route of an ordinance versus a resolution because an ordinance is law.
Yeah,
And it's
rather than,
stronger.
yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like Albuquerque has an ordinance on this, protecting descansos, which include those bikes. So just bit of info for those on that committee. So if we refer to that committee, but just there is some work that's already been done. So any other comments? If not, what's the will of the committee?
I'm not sure how to go, but do we draft a ordinance or do we request that the city draft an ordinance?
So it could be both. I mean, you can make the recommendation that the city work on it. I'm happy to put in a legislative request. We can have, that's one option. Another option, this could be referred to the policy law subcommittee. They can do their work to see not only within, New Mexico, because New Mexico, I don't want to say descansos are unique to New Mexico, but there might be other laws around ghost bikes because it's not a unique activity solely for New Mexico. There might be other municipalities, governmental entities that have passed such laws, and that's where if the subcommittee wants to take on this work, could be handed off to them. If it gets handed off to the city attorney's office to draft legislation, it can be then. I mean, it's ultimately up to the will of the committee, how the committee wants to move forward, I think.
So I would make a motion that we request our policy and law subcommittee to research it and come up with proposed language that they could then run by the city attorney, see if it's acceptable, and if so, move the process along through the governing body.
Okay, so that's a motion to refer this topic to the policy law and subcommittee.
Please, yes. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion? Got a second by Member Bordigari. Any other discussion, comments? Okay, seeing none, Ms. Glorioso Mas, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Member Bordigaray, Member Gabriel,
Yes.
Member McConnell,
Yes.
Member Pilcher,
Sure, yes.
Member Pangili,
Yes.
Member Schiffmiller,
Yes.
Member Wang,
Yes.
Chair Garcia,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Good luck with the research on that important topic. Next up is item 7E, BPAC comments on the Santa Fe Forward's draft assessment report. Member Pilcher, this is your item.
This is in the second agenda packet that was sent out to us. It's at the very end. Want to take a look at it. So what the Planning Policy and Law Committee took a look at the draft assessment report done for the Santa Fe Forward project, of which we had a presentation about last meeting, and came up with some comments we think would be good to be submitted by BPAC as an entity. Now, the comment deadline is July the 20th. So if anyone feels there's a need to modify what's been put here, we should make those modifications this evening. I look at this being really similar to I did some work on environmental impact statements. It was very much like the draft impact statement where you get the facts out there and you want to make sure there's a common basis of reality before you go on to the next step with this process for Santa Fe Forward, which would be good to develop goals and policies, and I'm not sure what else all will be in that planning document. So the comments put forth here are mostly in the context of, hey, here's what we saw some of the shortcomings with the draft assessment report. There's some things that need to be addressed more thoroughly. Good example is, there was a comment made about a typical amount of crashes. Well, what's a typical amount? Almost implies there's an acceptable amount, which is contrary to Vision Zero. So I don't know if anyone has questions about any of the draft comments here. But let's know.
Member Gabriel.
Thanks, Steve. So I got a little confused when I read your comments after reading what was in the packet. Is the document that we looked at more of a summary report? Because it didn't seem like the sections and stuff were in alignment with what we had in the packet. Am I just confused?
Yeah, the packet and what's in tonight's packet is basically a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Go to the website for Santa Fe Forward. You can find links to the draft assessment report, which is what these comments are based upon.
Okay.
It's much more thorough.
Okay. I figured that I was not looking at the same thing. But I did have a couple of comments based on your comments. And then one of your subcommittee members, Kathleen, who I have met through another venue, had some comments about the disability community that she wanted me to convey to you. Because she doesn't have your phone number. So I have a comment from her that she texted me.
What was the name?
Kathleen
Gish?
Gish.
Huh.
She's a new,
He was on the email list I sent out. So I'm surprised I never got a kickback that it didn't work sending it to her.
well, I think she actually read it, but she wanted to come to the meeting tonight, was unable to, so she just texted me. Are you interested in hearing what she recommended? So she said, add the identical disability language to the Santa Fe Forward with regards to using rolling. So whenever you say bicycling and walking, it should say bicycling, walking, and rolling. So that is one comment. And then my suggestion on number 8 under chapter 10 was to add the rail trail. When you say, why is there no mention of the rail trail, of the river Acequia, Arroyo Chamizo, if you keep that in there, I would also include the rail trail.
Okay.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Any member Bordiger?
Thank you, Chair. I was also confused. I'm glad Judith asked that question because I looked at the packet and it was a PowerPoint. And so I had to leave, unfortunately, the last meeting when Heather Lamboy presented this to us. And is that what they've produced so far, is the draft impact assessment report? That's part of their updating the general plan and the code? I want to fit this into context, and yeah, you're a planner too, so.
Kind of like an existing conditions report, or as I mentioned in environmental impacts, it means you kind of prepare a draft, which basically discusses existing conditions and probable impacts of the development proposal. It's not quite the same, but it's the best analogy I could come up with.
Yeah. Okay, so it's not an EIS, but it's a version. It's like the planning version of that, I guess. And I need to read it. I'll go look through it. I just haven't seen it done like that. We're updating a general plan. I guess that's one of the elements in this process that the consultants are doing, is doing this existing conditions report as a standalone document.
Right. So some of the things are just making sure that facts are there. Like there's no mention made about our status as a silver status bicycle friendly community. Seems like that's an appropriate thing to be put in there. I'd noted there was no discussion of like parking at rail runner stations or how our bikes accommodate on the trains. That might be just helpful background information. And frankly, I think there's a comment made in here just about, is there an inventory of bicycle parking in the whole city? Never mind what we were talking about earlier, it's just around the plaza area, but do we have an inventory of where our bike racks in the city? My guess is we don't. No one, I think Sharon and I, when Bill, Adrian and I met with staff several months ago, discovered there's really not even inventory of of traffic calming devices, where there's chicanes and speed humps, and we don't really know where those all are, I guess. Anyway, so like what we're looking for now, and I appreciate the comments that Judith was able to pass on. Like to see if get the consensus or formal motion vote of BPAC to submit these as BPAC's comments in the department as they go through their process.
Member Gabriel.
And do you mean as amended with the couple of suggestions? Yeah, I think that would make sense. And if anybody else has any other additions or suggestions, that could be part of the, oh my God, whatever, move.
Member Bordigary.
And following along those lines, it would need to get them to you before then, before July 22nd, in order to provide to the city.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Well, if we want the whole committee to send these on as a formal committee comments, we need to do it. And certainly anyone could comment as an individual. I think I might have thrown in some individual comments before I did. Anyways.
Any other comments? What's the will of the committee? Member Bordigary.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to suggest a motion. Were you?
Sorta.
What we just said, go for it. I would say I move that the BPAC submit these recommendations that Member Pilcher has written.
The whole committee, subcommittee, not just me. Share the glory and the blame, whatever the case may be.
So I guess my question is, does that include the additional comments made by subcommittee member Gish?
Yes.
Okay.
Any more that may come.
Okay.
Along.
And just, well, before is there a second to that motion? Get into more questions.
I second.
Okay, and then Ms. Gloriosa Moss, these written comments have been provided as part of the package just so the public can see them, right? So they can see, okay, perfect. That's the only comment I had. Okay, any other questions, comments? Seeing or hear none? Yes. Member Gabriel. She seconded the motion with the motion made by Member Bordigary. Okay, seeing none, can I get a roll call vote, please?
Member Bordigary, Member Gabriel, Member McConnell,
Yes.
Member Pilcher,
Yes.
Member Pengili,
Yes.
Member Schiffmiller,
Yes.
Member Wang,
Yes.
Chair Garcia,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to item 8. Subcommittee Communications, Policy, Planning and Law, Member Pilcher.
Got nothing new to add since you just saw our efforts in the last meeting and this one. Thank you for voting on those.
Okay. Next up is item B, Promotions, Education and Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just a couple of brief things. So I do have a question. Are we putting this crosswalk issue on the next meeting agenda? I propose that we do that.
Okay.
The other thing is we have not met in a while. I was out of town, but we are going to be drafting letters of invite for a walk and a bike ride, probably in the fall. And regarding the Idaho stop law, we'll be talking about how to educate the public. The Bike Santa Fe made a very succinct and very clear pamphlet. The city has obviously done the video. I am going to be inquiring about some radio spots just to see if we might be able to get on a couple of interview shows and talk a little bit about the Idaho stop. And then the last thing I just wanted people to know, at a couple meetings ago, when I presented about the website, there was a request, I think, from Member Pilcher that when you select a link to another resource, it say something like you are now leaving the city website. Well, that led to the discovery that the city doesn't allow non-city websites on their city websites, which I wish we had known earlier. And I don't agree with the policy, and I'm wondering how we might go about requesting that get relooked at, because I think as the city's advisory committee, it would be great to have, so that means we can't have a link to Bike Santa Fe. We don't have a link to Santa Fe Conservation Trust. Those are both organizations that are aligned with our work. And I just find it very disappointing. And also Aria mentioned tonight, perhaps having a link to some resources, and I think the current policy would preclude that. So perhaps we can put that on the next agenda, or I don't know if there's a way to work with the city to challenge that and see if they're willing to change that, because I think it makes us less effective to not be able to link to other agencies, organizations who share our missions and goals. Thank you.
Well, and I'll quickly follow up just because I know we don't have discussion, but I'd like to find out where this policy is, because I know there are other entities that are linked on our website. I just quickly, because I had this page open, the Office of Affordable Housing, on the shelter emergency housing page, it lists all the shelters, St. E's, Interfaith, Lifelink, and if I click on them, it takes me to those organizations' websites. So we can't pick and choose how we enforce this. So if there is a policy, then obviously this page is in violation, and I completely agree with you. It's helpful for us to have links directing folks to other locations. So let's connect offline on that one. Sure. Unfortunately, we can't have discussion on this one. Yeah, sorry. I wish we've got a. Last one is item C, technical review. Member Schiffmiller.
Thank you, Chair Garcia. Since the last BPAC meeting, I've attended several meetings and having to do with the Henry Lynch project. There was a public meeting on June 18th that I attended. And I've continued to attend the every other week Monday meetings working towards the 60% design. On the 27th of June, I attended an on-site meeting with Division Director Morrow and members of the Santa Fe Metropolitan Planning Organization and Melissa McDonald of the Parks Department. We actually met on site on Henry Lynch and walked up and down and had a look at it and discussed which options we would prefer. And then on the 30th, there was a meeting, online meeting, where option B, there was options A through G, and option B was decided upon as the 60% design review. And I guess we can't discuss it, but I'm just reporting on as to what was happened. And that's the option that includes connectivity it's one of the options that includes connectivity between the river trail and its extension with the Acequia Trail, because that was one of the main wishes of the public that came through at the public meeting, that a lot of people talked about the need for connectivity. So I'm glad to say that the option decided upon includes that. And I will continue to attend these meetings every other Monday and report back as to what's going on.
But I also believe that the road doesn't have bike lanes.
That the option that was preferred by the group, that's correct. They chose not to have bike lanes. That's not what the on-site reviewers preferred, but we don't get to say necessarily what happens. So that's what happened. And I think there'll be an agenda item next month, perhaps if we want to discuss that, but my understanding is we can't discuss it here.
Right. Yeah, and on that topic, for the record, Tim Rogers, who's also a subcommittee member, sent in a comment that all insurers included in the minutes as public comment for tonight's meeting. So that, just so Tim knows that comment will be part of tonight's meeting's record. Okay. Any other updates from the committee?
No, that's what we've been focused on lately, is the Henry Lunch project.
Okay, and then if you do need it for next week's agenda or next month's agenda, just connect with Ms. Gloria Somas. All right, next up is item 9, matters from staff.
I did an accomplishment report at the last Public Works and Utilities Committee's meeting, and capital projects, which you are the advisory committee, has worked on 26 projects. 19 of those are roadways and 6 are trails. And we constructed 2 trails. We finished constructing 2 trails within the last fiscal year, the El Camino Real Academy Trail and the Cañada Rincon Trail, which is one of my favorites. And I thank especially the Technical Review Committee for reviewing the design of all the projects, and the PEP for every time we have a grand opening, PEP is always there to support the opening of the project. And for this fiscal year, of course, we are going to finish the Guadalupe Street. And I'm now coordinating with the communications team how we present the Guadalupe Street reconstruction project. What else? And I applied for funding to construct the St. Michael's Drive rail trail underpass. We have a promise from HSIP that they will give us $8 million, and there's perhaps CIMAC will give us $3 million. And so I applied for $10 million from SS4A, and we will know the results end of this year if we got $10 million. That's it from staff.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gloria Somas. Next up is matters from the committee. I'm just gonna go left to right this time. Thumbs up, nothing.
A question for Romella. Do you know when the road projects that are paid for through the street improvement bond are going to begin?
So I can go with clarification, a $25 million bond?
$25 million bond.
So we just approved the issuance of the bond last night. Dependent on the specific project, they're going to have different timelines. So if there's a specific within that $25 million, there were specific roads that were identified, but then there were quote unquote residential roads that weren't identified. So you have any pinpoint focused roads you're interested in? I'm happy to get that info for you. I know off the top of my head, because this is one of the major ones was Airport Road. They're hoping to begin that next spring.
That's good, because I'm gonna think I need to wear my bike guard when I travel Airport Road. That's
Yeah.
good to hear.
Yes, yes. So I don't know if staff, y'all are the experts on that, so. Anything else, Lucretia, Romola, did I cover it? Okay.
Chair, committee, you covered it. You were, airport is going to be one of our main focus. So that will be our first project with the bond.
Okay.
One other question, if I may. Mel, do you know when the Terra Contenta Trail extension is going to begin?
Yes, so that's federal funded project. So we had a pre-construction meeting with NMDOT and FHWA last week. No, 2 weeks ago. And we will start the construction on August 4.
Thank you.
Okay, any other matters from Member McConnell?
Can it be anything, or I don't know what the limits are?
What was that?
Oh, for comments or
Yeah, it's matters from.
Okay, very simple. I often travel on Rafina between Richards and then Lynch is the other part, and Siler. And when you're going eastbound, you just come off of Siler, turn left. There's a bike lane, but there's also parking for a short distance, maybe a couple hundred yards. And what happens when it necks down is people park in the area that forces the bike lane to be occupied. So I don't know if that area could be painted as no parking, or do you address the adjacent property owner? I don't know what the options are to deal with that, because what it forces me to do is go out into the travel lane, not be able to continue to use the bike lane. So it's just an observation, and I've taken pictures of people parked there, but I haven't followed up on anything with the committee. But if there is, correct. I don't know if we can paint the curb red or some color that doesn't allow parking. So it's noticeable for anyone. I think people are just doing it, and it hasn't been no one's brought it forward. It's one of those things, I think, towards the Vision Zero idea of just eliminating the conflicts. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
No. Well, if you have pictures, I'm happy to push them up with the constituent request. Okay. Send it to, yeah, send it to me. I can move forward with it.
Thank you.
Sure. Member Pingili.
Sure. While we're talking about Rafina, also there are some medians on Rafina where it forces the bike lane down to about a foot, where it's usually 3 or 4 feet, pretty narrow the whole way, but it gets really narrow where these medians are. And I'm wondering, can we fix the median so that we actually have a bike lane? That would be great.
Can you help to identify the location just to pinpoint it better, or?
Can I email it to you?
Sure.
Great. And then the other matter, whenever they're redoing Airport Road, is there going to be any restriping? Okay, changing the widths of. Oh, great. Thanks.
Sure. Member Pilcher.
To hop onto that comment, I would hope that maybe the technical review committee could review the striping plans.
So what happened lately is that the project manager for the pavement rehab is now under me. So I can ask him to include BPAC. technical review. And if you notice in the resolution, the role of BPAC as a reviewer is only at 30 and 90%. But what I'm doing now is the BPAC member becomes a member of the team designing the project, so that when the design is presented at 30, 60, 90 to the public, then we have the support of BPAC. And I know the decision is not, we cannot accommodate everything that we want, because like, for example, for Henry Lynch, the funding that we expected is the cost estimate that we expected for the whole road, including the roundabout, was $5 million, but it's more than that. And the funding, as you know, is difficult to find.
Okay, any other comments from the committee? Seeing none, we did matters from the chair earlier, so next meeting, August 14th, 2025. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.